You're listening to Cardiff City World on Cymru Sport Radio, live from the Welsh capital. The most interactive football show in Wales, featuring guests, fan opinion, and all the latest news surrounding Cardiff City. Have your say and get in touch now.
Why you didn't know if you had which manager was going to be? Was it going to be Errol? Was it going to be somebody else? Come towards the end of the season, this was obviously the start of it. And then you kind of start looking at Omar Riza comes in as assistant coach, and then you go into the season, starts off very, very bad, the worst start in Cardiff City's history, I believe. So that was a mess and another big red flag. And then you start kind of going into the season, and there was too many ups and downs in that first 4 or 5 months. Too many ups and downs, too many inconsistencies. Obviously, Errol Brew gets sacked. Omar Reza takes over, and only interim as well for a little while, by the way. All of a sudden, then he's got the job till the end of the season. So, and then this leads us on to where we are right now. In last weekend, they make the decision, and the club make the decision of sacking Omar Reza, and Aaron has got 3 games facing the darkness of relegation, and he's a player, by the way, and currently, and he's pretty much. He would have been told, listen, can you keep us up? Do you want to take the job? So that's where we are right now. I think as I kind of start to reel off, those are some of the things that, for me, they're alarming, that the way that path was done, the way that kind of season has gone, and those decisions.
Yeah, for sure. It's a weird one, mate, because I just felt they've had many opportunities, throughout the season where they could have made a change, an intelligent change. And, at the end of the day, it won't be on Aaron Ramsey if Cardiff don't stay up or not. There is still hope. Remarkably, as poor as the results have been, they still aren't mathematically down. And, if Derby beat Hull on Saturday and Cardiff can find a win, hosting West Brom, suddenly it's into the final day of the season. And Hull have got a real difficult trip on that last day against Portsmouth, while Cardiff travel to your former team, Norwich. So it'll be interesting, mate, because, somehow they're not down yet. But do you think, did you see a difference in the way they played on Monday under Aaron? I know you only had 1 day to work with them, but I thought they moved the ball a lot quicker, and there was, runners off the ball as well.
Yeah, I mean, I saw little things, but this is where I got asked the other day about, what do you think of Aaron Ramsey being a judge? I know Aaron, he's an ex-teammate, he's a friend of mine. I know from him that he wants to become a coach. Of course, that's why the club would have spoke with him in the first place. I know he's doing his coaching badges, and he sees that as a long-term objective for him. So, listen, he's a good guy. He's very intelligent. He's got a great football IQ. He's got lots and lots of experience, and he's a very, very good football man. But right now, he's still a player. And for me, was the decision to sack Omar Reza. Of course, he didn't help himself with the comments last weekend about calling, some fans clueless. That doesn't help you, and that's unforgivable, to be honest with you. But when Aaron takes over, it's a very unfair decision, because the way I kind of looked at it was a decision made unplanned and off the cuff. Because 3 games to go, you're facing relegation. You need to win 2 out of 3. Yes, mathematically, it may be 1 win, but really with the goal difference and needing at least 1 win, you need really 4 points. That's obviously two games. So you need to get points, at least 4 points, preferably 6 to 9. Right now, they can't get 9. So that's the problem. So with Aaron given the job, then you are with, oh, by the way, you've only got 1 day's training. Monday is a must-win against Oxford. That is, talk about not even having a pre-season, talking about 6 weeks to prepare your team so you can win this 1 game or whatever. You got 1 day. And by the way, you're also in that dressing room as a player, so it's a very, very different. So understanding that dynamic of somebody who goes from a player in 1 day to a now you're picking the team and you're the coach. That's impossible. That's so difficult. So understanding that, it makes it an impossible job, really, and in a very unfair way, because what was Aaron going to do? Of course he's going to say yes. He's one of the leaders in the dressing room. So when the club says to him, listen, can you take charge of the team? What's he going to say? No. I know Aaron is very proud, and of course he wants to do it, and he knows it's early for him as well. But he's going to say yes. Of course he is. So I just thought it was an unfair position, because, to say to him, listen, we're facing relegation, and we've sacked the manager, and will you take charge, because we haven't got anybody else, and we've got 1 day to win this 1 game on Monday. can you take it? That's a very unfair position to put somebody in. And guess what? It's very unfair to the fans and the football club itself, because let's face it, League One is not a great league, and it's not the league we want to be in as a Cardiff City fan, player, club member, former player, whatever. It's not the position that the football club should be in, and the league that the football club should be in. So that's a very it's a very unplanned decision that was made, and it just puts the club in a really, really bad position going into that West Brom game and going into the Norwich game, because let's face it, West Brom, very good team, can beat anybody. Norwich, very good at home, they can beat anybody, and both of them have just sacked their managers. So there's going to be a new energy from both teams. So that is a very, very dark, very tough position to be in.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think, from my point of view as a Cardiff fan, I come to terms with it. I felt, I was broken on Monday. I really was so down. And I think, while it's mathematically possible, you've got to just play to win. And maybe you see some of these players, with the pressure off now, because they haven't, everyone pretty much thinks we're down and it's done. Maybe they can let those shackles off a little bit, because I do feel that, particularly in the attacking areas, it's felt like the team has been very curtailed in their natural instincts. I look at people like Ruben Colwell, a player who plays sort of off the cuff, and others as well, and it feels like they've been sort of shackled or curtailed a little bit over the season. But ultimately, like you say, mate, it comes to the organisation, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Listen, at the end, it comes down to how your team is led. The big factor. Players, I always say, players, you've got an accountability for yourself to play good football, play in the way that to be decisive as a football player on the pitch. You're there to do a job. If you're an attacker, go score goals. If you're a creative midfielder, go create some chances for your strikers, create chances for yourself. If you're a winger, how many crosses are you getting? As a defender, stop the ball and go in the back of the net, but also help your teammates around you. There's certain things that are just the fundamentals, the principles of how you should be doing your job on the football pitch. So there's an accountability there from players, but as a coach or the leader or the manager, you've also got a responsibility there. But from what you said about did I see certain things? I saw certain little things that were instantly I could see. It's coming from Aaron. The team is a little bit higher up the pitch, but the main problems were still there. What I've seen, a very open midfield. Lots of times where they could concede at any moment. And the biggest thing is that worry of in the attacking end. You've got good players here. That you mentioned, the likes of Ruben Colwell. I like him. He's a good young player. Salic as well. I like him as well. But the problem is you've got such a real lack of creativity. And what's going to happen from that? Well, you're not going to score as many goals. So I think there was, with one day's training, Aaron, I think, showed some little bits there that I think could, obviously showed an improvement. But at the same time, the same things we've seen all season were still there. The fundamentals, they weren't quite clicking. At the optimum best, so to say.
I feel like there's a lot of young players who are, they're good footballers. I look at Will Fish. I think questions probably have to be asked why he didn't play more at the start of the season, because he's been our best, out and out defender in terms of winning balls and putting his body on the line. And he missed the first part of the season, sat on the bench. But what I think they really lack is leaders, like a traditional old school leader, like a Sol Bamba, like a Graham Kavanagh, like a Sean Morrison, all these guys that Cardiff have traditionally had over the years, who help the young players to realise their potential. When the likes of you and James Collins and Gabardon were coming through, you had experienced pros with you to help you along the way when times were tough.
Well, yes, it was that. But remember also that we were there, young players who we had a goal as well. The goal was we have to deliver. For example, you talk about those three. Me, James Collins, Danny Gavin, the young prospects that were in and around a successful team. You look at James, top defender. His idea was to do the best job possible and also defend excellently. But also, there's going to be times where I'm needed to spray the ball around. It's the same, slightly different. Read the game, be almost like a sweeper, plus pop into midfield sometimes. Quality, and me, I was there to score as many goals as possible. My objective was always break a goal scoring record this season. Over 20, 30 goals. So there was always, yes, the players around, they were pushing us, but we were driven in ourselves. That was the number one thing. We didn't always need the older players. Sometimes we had to show them that, listen, follow us as well.
Yeah, I like that.
Because we were young players who were driven that we got goals as well. We've got things that we want to do as well. And sometimes we bring you along and put you as the experienced guys in the squad. So sometimes it's forgotten, and it's always the older players, and they might not do it, or sometimes the younger players need to check yourself as well and make sure that you're pushing everybody else in the squad. That is a big factor. That drives your team. But I think the biggest problem is, we've seen it as fans, you yourself, there's a real lack of quality in the squad. There's not, of course, there's that experience and big personalities driving the team forward, all of those things. But there's a real lack of quality as well. That is shown.
Yeah, I was speaking to we had Phil Stant on the channel last week, and I was talking to him about it because I feel like the squad that Cardiff have, there's a lot of individually good footballers. Technically, you look at them, and there's some really good footballers. Alex Robertson and Will Alves is obviously very young, but he's shown he's technically very good. And there's, like you say, Salic has come in and hit the ground running. Manswerk from Ajax. They're all individually good footballers, but there just seems to be a bit of a disconnect into how they blend as a team. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you, mate, obviously you're still heavily involved within the world of football, is, and I mean this generally, not necessarily aimed at Cardiff, but I just mean this as a general thing. Do you think in modern football, young players get too much too soon? Or on the other hand, do you think that fans and teams, because of people like, Lamine Yamal, who's playing 16, 17 at the top level, people expect too much from young players? Or is it just somewhere in between?
To be honest with you, not one of those, and it's so easy, I think. I always reflect this. It's a good question, by the way, because I reflect on this. I don't think they get too much too soon. I think it's relative to the time, to what it is. There's times where certain players play games or plays a certain amount of games, and you think, oh, they're not quite ready yet. I think that happens. Of course, it does. I think there's times where they're very good, genuine talents, and they need that experience, play some games, and that's kind of given to them as well, and justifiably so. But I generally don't believe that they're given too much too soon. I think sometimes you need to put talents in when just before they're ready, to get that experience, to just push them up a little level. But it still comes down to sometimes football is not changed at all. The principles are all the same. Whether you're a talent or not, you're still there to do the best that you can as an individual. If you got talent, what's your talent? For example, you're a midfield player. Okay, you've got 4 or 5 things. For example, defensively, transitions, attacking wise, defensive wise. Which one are you? Are you an attacking? Are you a box to box? Are you a defensive midfielder? You've got to be specialize in that. You've got to deliver in what you're asked to do. So I think some take it on board and obviously show the talent that they are, and you think, wow, what a good player. And some can't handle that pressure, to be honest. And it's unfortunate, really, but that's the level. Unfortunately, their eyes are on you, and the fans are on you, and the football club's on you. I just always look at it this way, and that's why I say football doesn't change, because it's very similar. The young player coming through the youth system at Cardiff City, and we used to come, and we before I reached the first team, I was watching, and I was studying, and I was looking at the first team and thinking, how can I pinpoint things that how I can get into the first team. The same things apply to the young players right now in the academy, and the likes of Ruben Colwell and Isaac and all of these guys, all the young players in the squad. It applies the same. What are you going to do when you get the shirt on and you're given the chance to go and deliver? He was scoring goals. I scored goals, played well, was creative, was always a threat, no matter which game, whether I was playing good, bad, whatever. To be a threat always, whether with my movement, my finishing, creating chances. That was my role. But obviously everybody's got their own specific role, so it's still the same in that way. How football has still the same set of principles, and in general, football. You're given a great platform to become a football player. The likes of Lamine Yamal and all of these, because they are special.
Of course.
He's extraordinary, for example, him. And I always look at it this way: young players should look at people like that and be an inspiration, and study him as an inspiration, and think, okay, what qualities can I touch into? Is he got a great left foot? Okay, how can I make my left foot even half as good?
Yeah.
So the platform is there. It's just whether you can handle the things around it. The pressure is still the same in football. The fans still demand of you the same in football. They want you to put the shirt on and give everything, whether it's you're running for the team, whether you're playing good or bad, it's still the same. Delivering in the final moments where there's a critical little moment where you show a little bit of individual brilliance and score a goal, that's still the same. I think tactically it's never been easier for young players, because sometimes I think, if I got the same tactics and the same development and the same way that some of the young players now are looked at to come to a first team, man, I scored 40 goals, 45 goals a season. So listen, I always support young players and support the game as it is now, and all the players that are given the chance now to put on a professional football shirt. That I don't think they're given too much too soon. I think along the way you do earn it. It's just the earning comes whether you stay there a long time or a short time. A short time generally means you kind of lost your way a little bit, but if you start having like 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 seasons, then along the way you could handle the pressure. You're delivering in certain moments, and you're able to handle the pressures of being a professional football player.
Incredible. I love it. And Rob, thank you so much, mate, for your insight this evening. Just a very quick, very quick question to finish, and you can answer it in one word if you like. It's fine.
No problem,
Is there any way that Aaron Ramsey can pull off a little Welsh miracle in these last 2 games and keep Cardiff up? Give us some hope.
I hope so. I hope so. Yeah. Listen, of course, there's 2 games, 2 cup finals. Funny enough, against my former teams, West Brom, had a great time there, and good club. Norwich as well. I got fond memories of Norwich as well, but I want Cardiff City to win both games, to be honest with you. And I'd love Aaron to pull off. If he wins 2 games, Cardiff stay for sure, because I can't see the others winning 2 games or the other teams getting 4 points. I think Luton and Derby are probably the 2 most likely competitors to Cardiff. I think Hull have just got a little bit of a buffer because they're a few more points ahead, but I think Aaron can do it. I just think it's going to be extremely difficult. It's been made extremely difficult because of the draw against Oxford.
Of course.
But yes, you can. Of course, you can do it. Listen, in one sense, I'm happy that Alan's in charge, and in the other sense, I also felt it was unfair to him to be given that role in the sense of it's almost like trouble. Can you get us out of trouble? That was the spirit of the decision, rather than 6 or 7, 10 weeks ago planning it. You're going to give it to him 8 to 10 games ago that you've got to produce a miracle, because it's going to produce a miracle. Because let's face it, we've not seen Cardiff City, win right now. So listen, I believe they can win it. I believe Barry can win it. I'm hoping that is the case, and I'm hoping 2 weeks time we're all celebrating as Cardiff City fans that the club has produced a miracle and stand. But to be honest with you, that's my heart speaking. My head says it's very unlikely.
Yeah, it will be a miracle for sure, mate. Let's face it. Rob, thank you so much for joining me, mate, and I look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Pleasure.
Yeah, man.
Technical difficulties sorted, and we'll do a longer version.
Yeah,
no
man.
problem.
Top man. Cheers, Rob. Take care,
All
mate.
right.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Earnshaw.
You're listening to Cardiff City World on Cymru Sport Radio, live from the Welsh capital. The most interactive football show in Wales, featuring guests, fan opinion, and all the latest news surrounding Cardiff City. Have your say and get in touch now.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies for the first part of that interview and the first part of the show. There was some technical issues. Frustrating. I will re-upload the full interview after tomorrow morning, probably in full. But we got loads of guests today, and we got lots to discuss, including Cardiff City. There is so much negativity surrounding the club because they are all but down at the moment. It feels like there's not much hope, but all they can do is go and win a couple of football matches and hope that results elsewhere go their way. But next up, I am delighted to be joined by Ace Podcast Nation commercial manager, Mr. Aaron Anderson. Welcome to the show, mate. How are you?
I'm very well, Slee. And yourself?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. In the hands of technology is always fun, mate, because you got to do it all on the fly while still talking and still trying to concentrate on what you're doing. But look, it is what it is. Can't complain.
Challenges of life.
Yeah, that's it, mate. And look, it's in the grand scheme of things, it's not the biggest problem in the world. And look, I always have a great time speaking to Rob there. Like, he's really interesting. He speaks really well. And ultimately, he wants Cardiff City to do well. He wants Cardiff City to win those games, and he wants us to stay up. But it's looking increasingly difficult. It's been a negative period, I think is fair to say, mate. So why don't we talk about something a little bit more positive? This Friday, we are welcoming Glenn Loovens back to the capital, to Cardiff, to Splott Cons, where we will host a live event with him. And it's your first event, if I can get my words out, as part of the team, mate. So I wanted to get you on and just talk about it a little bit, how you're looking forward to it, how you're finding it, and stuff like that. But are you nervous? All that sort of stuff. Like, how are you feeling coming into Friday now, mate?
Very excited. Very exciting times. I'm, really glad to be part of the Ace Podcast Nation team. Some great people there. With the core values of what it means to be a fan. Just basically looking to join the team, looking to grow on recent successes. Some of the events that you've done, which are really fantastic, and just push on. I think Friday night is going to be a very special night from what we've discussed behind the scenes, and one that I think anyone who's attending is going to be really excited for. Lots going on, lots of stories, lots of fun. Just privileged to be part of it. Yeah,
and I think the interesting thing for me is I think we'll be hearing Glenn's stories because he hasn't done a lot of interviews, podcasts, things like that. I think he's done one live event up in Scotland for Celtic. So it's going to be a lot of new stories, new memories, a new take on things that people haven't heard because, they haven't they haven't heard his version of things. They haven't heard of the reasons why he left Cardiff City when he did, and went to Celtic, and people can guess. But it's always interesting to get those inside scoops from the players and hear the stories.
It's very good. He's renowned for his career at City, and obviously going on to sort of Celtic and other teams, Sheffield Wednesday as well. But I think also it's a great opportunity for us to showcase what Ace Podcast Nation's about. And it's also at the start of a great journey. Lots of big events coming up, lots of more content, lots more media, and basically giving the fans what they want. And, at the end of the day, we are fans, so we're going to provide honest, straight talking things. And very, very, I can't share the excitement that I have ready for Friday. I know the stuff that's in the background's ready for it. Just well done to you, Si, for, what you've put together as well, mate.
No, I think, to be honest, mate, it's always a team effort anyway. Matt and Reese and the boys and my missus, I can't leave out as like when the first time we met, actually, you were like, I didn't realize how much your missus does for you with regards to everything. She does loads behind the scenes. She will not come on camera. That's the thing. But she does loads, mate. And I wouldn't be able to do it without her. And I wouldn't be able to do it without people like yourself and all the boys and that who help out. It's but it's one of those, look, we've done a few different live events now, and we did a few tester events, and then we sort of built up. Obviously, the most recent two being Joe Ledley and Craig Bellamy, but also the live events are a knock-on of the content that we do on Cardiff City World, and of course, Cymru Sport Radio, Ace Podcast Nation. It's all about authentic content and conversations, but I wanted to create an intimate kind of fan event, and I got offered to do larger venues where you'd have a few hundred people doing them and stuff like that, but that wasn't really the way I wanted to go, because I never wanted it to be like a money grab from people who were just like me, just fans. Like, at the end of the day, what I wanted to do is create something which was not like what you get elsewhere, so you can genuinely get to spend time with these ex-players and have a chat, have a pint, just ask them random questions about whatever you want to ask. And I think that's unique, mate. I really do. And for people who speak to them, I think you've only got to listen to the feedback from the people who have to kind of get a drift of what it is.
I think for the dynamic of these sort of events, what it creates is networking for people in a football environment, for like-minded people. Everyone's there for the same sort of goals, the same sort of eras, the same sort of history. And, we can all relate to that, that one umbrella, which is Cardiff City. And in this case, it's Glenn Loovens. But, what better sort of name to kick it off than Glenn? A great history. Look at some of the stats today. He was probably around that sort of era when I was introduced to Cardiff City. And it's great now that, we show our children these sort of players, and they actually got the ability to see the history, I think it's going to be fantastic, mate.
Yeah, and there's we've introduced like an additional thing this time around as well, where you've got, because something which was very important to me with these events was I wanted to keep the ticket prices as low as possible. So I think pretty much all the events have been £10 a ticket. I think there was one, I think Michael Chopra one was slightly more expensive, but that was only to cover like travel costs and things for him flying over. Generally speaking, we wanted to keep the tickets as cheap as possible, but what we wanted to add to this event was the opportunity for people to pay a little bit more and have that extra time and that sort of separate time with Glenn and have some other discussions with him. Talk to me a little bit about what that will bring.
So it's a new avenue that we're looking at here at Ace Podcast Nation, and what we're looking at is, it's just, in essence, it's an early access. So there's nothing better than a pre-order, a pre-arrival, where you get to a VIP Rolls-Royce experience where you get to meet Glenn, you get to have your pictures with Glenn. There's also going to be some additional content with Glenn. So we've got a chosen subject that we'll look at every live event. This one is very close to myself, and I know to yourself, regarding mental health. And we've obviously with the sponsor for the event as well there. So we've got Anxious to Zen, which are a fantastic company. And what they look to do steal into sort of prevention as opposed to sort of treatments. And they empower people to manage their mental health, and it's very close to us. And I think what these sort of events create is a dynamic where like-minded people, we can have those honest conversations, we can vent, we can release, and we can also listen to people. Glenn had a great career, and they're not immune to it. They've been through it, and he's going to describe some stories that are very powerful. I think that we can all relate to this, and I think the early access, it gives you that sort of that little bit of extra time, beat the queue, front of the queue, front of the doors, almost ringside. If it's probably the best way to describe it, but it's something new we're trying. It's in its infancy, but I think it's something that fans want. They want to be able to have that access. They want to be able to get there. Not everybody will want it, but it's an opportunity. It's something different. It also brings in businesses as well. So you'll find that there'll be like-minded business people that will want to sort of take stuff away from this as well. We're an inclusive sort of media company. We look after everyone. I'd like to think at the end of the event, with the feedback that we'll provide, it'll be a successful one.
Yeah, for sure, mate. And I think obviously one of the things with regards to what we've discussed, but also what I've discussed, publicly is, it's one thing to talk about things like mental health, community, grassroots football, whatever it may be. But I'm a big believer in, it's easy to talk about it and kind of say, oh yeah, people should do this, people should do that. But I am also a big believer in backing up your words, and like actions do speak, speak louder than words. So I was always keen to work with, mental health companies, charities. We've done some stuff recently with Signposted, and that's something which will keep going. And also, in the community, we've got the FAW's Jack Sharp on a bit later on this evening, who's the head of domestic football. And I know there's a host of questions for him from people who are involved within grassroots football. That's something which we're looking into to help our local grassroots teams and things like that as well. It's something. It's an evolving and ongoing process. Someone in the comments has just asked, out of curiosity, will it be the same as previous events where you can have a picture with him and you can queue up during the midway break or at the end of the show? So just to clarify with that, yeah, it'll be the same where we have that little break in the middle of the main part of the show and people can queue up and they'll be able to, have a photo with Glenn and all that good stuff. But what you just get by that with the extra price ticket is you don't have to queue. There's a very small group of people. You get that sort of one-on-one time or that small group time with Glenn, a lot more. You've got like an hour with him. He's gonna talk about some different things that he's not going to talk about later on in the evening, and it's just an opportunity. Like you said, it's not for everybody, but it's something that is available, and I think in time people will enjoy it as much as they enjoy the main show. And look, I'm super excited for Friday, mate, because it's been such a negative season for Cardiff. And I think I said earlier, actually, when I was interviewing Rob, like Monday night, I just felt broken. I was so down. I haven't felt like that for a while. Like my physical health hasn't been great recently, but my mental health has been all right. And I just felt broken. And, we all love our football clubs, and there'll be people listening and watching who are not Cardiff fans. They're tuning in for the Welsh Football Hour in a bit. It's one of those things where football does make or break your weekend. It makes up, if Cardiff lose on Saturday, or even worse when they play on a Friday, if they play badly or really bad, and it goes really badly, that ruins your whole weekend. And I think having a bit of positivity now this weekend is just what the doctor ordered.
Exactly. It was very strange having to sort of educate my young children what relegation actually is, because it's not something they've ever seen with Cardiff City, to be fair. So that was definitely a life lesson, but then obviously a lesson of how things can change and get better. But no, like I said, Friday night's to start something great, and hopefully then City follow on with a couple of results after that as well.
Indeed, mate. And I think, look, there'll be other things on the night. There's going to be a golden ticket raffle where you can win a signed Glenn Loovens shirt, which will be one of one. It'll be authenticated and you'll have a photo with it and stuff like that. So you can get tickets for that during the evening on Friday. There's also going to be. Are we going to tell them about your man Ryan, or are we going to keep that as a surprise?
Oh yeah, well, there's two of them, isn't there?
Yeah.
Should we shout it out?
Yeah, go on.
So slightly something different and sort of challenging. So we have a good friend is the best way to describe it, and he is a street magician. So his challenge is to entertain you guys. It will be amongst the breaks. It will be at the tables. Basically, this chap is fantastic. He's not quite dynamo, but his skills and his colleague will be coming along, challenge him, engage with him, because he is a very, very good character to have around the environment, and it shows that in conclusion, of the helping a fellow business who's not long started up, and he needs our support as much as, we're looking forward to having him there. So, it's another opportunity of community and growth and that. But yeah, his name's Ryan. You can't miss him. He'll be dressed up in something, and firsthand can validate some of his tricks are fantastic.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, because I'm really into my magic, and I can see me ending up getting distracted when I'm supposed to be doing something, and my missus will be going, Simon, you got to do this, or you got to do that. But yeah, I love a bit of magic, mate. So I'm really looking forward to that. And like we say, it's evolving what's already been successful, and keep building on it. And I think that should be the kind of epitome of whatever you do. Is not, you don't want to stop when something good happens. You want to keep building on that. And look, don't get me wrong, the Craig Bellamy evening was very stressful to put together on 2 weeks' notice, but it was also one of the most satisfying professional evenings of my career, of my life, of my career. It was super exciting to be part of, to be asked to do it, and it's something which we wanted to build on. And obviously the Joe Ledley one before that was different again, where Joe was like singing and dancing. So it's not just kind of turn up, listen to an ex-player talk, and that's it. Like, there's a whole evening of different things, different versions of and different twists on entertainment, different conversations to be had. And of course, the last part of the evening, or the second part of the main show, the microphones will be out and people will get to ask Glenn whatever they want to ask, whether that might be, mental health, that might be what he's up to now, that might be a specific question about playing with a certain player, or, whatever that may be. It's an open thing at the end of the day.
And then that's also the other thing is feedback as well. These events grow and become better because of the feedback of the guests. We're open to engagement, we're open to listening. We want to do what works for you guys. So however that may be, drop us an email, drop us a message, and we'll always try to facilitate anything that is asked of us.
Yeah. So this Friday, the show starts around 7:30, but anyone who knows me knows I'm always about 5-10 minutes late, wherever I do and wherever I go. But the doors will open to the room 6:30. Obviously, the £20 ticket people, like the corporate and stuff, who've got that extra hour, will be before that at 5:30, I think it is. But I'll put all that out, and I'll the people who've purchased the £20 tickets, I'll send an email out tomorrow so that they have got a full idea of everything which is going on. And I'm sure we might end up adding some stuff throughout the next couple of days, because, always looking to improve things. Aaron, very quickly, mate, as we go into the last couple of minutes of hour one, it's flown by that. It's probably because no one could hear the first 10 minutes. What is there any way we see a fairy tale finish to the season for Aaron Ramsey and Cardiff City?
I'm praying, I'm hoping. But I think, we are where we are on merit. We deserve to be there. I think, if you would ask my opinion, I think probably it's wise to sort of go down and sort of restructure, get all our sort of ducks in one pond and sort of restructure and just sort of go again. I think we've been toying with it for too long, and I don't think my brain or my heart can take it the past 4 or 5 years. But I think, I want to say yes, but then my concern would be, are we going to be in the same position next year? I think Cardiff City is a massive club, great fan base. On the whole, the squad's great. Rambo, what he's looking to do, would be great. But there needs to be that direction, doesn't there? And I think maybe a reset is required, but that's just my opinion as a fan,
Yeah, I mean, everyone's got those opinions, and my worry is always financially if we go down. But I think ultimately, I said the other day, and I said a couple of weeks ago, whether we go down or we stay up, this summer should be where things are rebuilt, evolved, and just completely revolutionized the way we do it. Because I feel like the club is falling behind off the field in a big way in a lot of different aspects. And you can check out my series on that as well, by the way, Rebuilding Cardiff City. Episode 3 is out on the weekend. But yeah, no, it's just a little plug there. No, look, Cardiff have flirted with relegation for years. You cannot keep doing that without addressing the issues. And that's just the way it is. And that goes for any club. If you don't fix the problems and the issues, it's the same with anything, though, isn't it? Like if you've got a problem and you just ignore it, it's like, I think we've probably all done it when we were younger. You get a bit of like a mobile phone bill, which is overdue. You ignore it. And then, a couple of weeks later, you get a red letter, pay the bill, and you ignore it again, and you ignore it, and you put it off. And what happens? It just gets worse. And I think that's exactly what happened with Cardiff City. Is it's just got worse and worse. We got away with one a couple of years ago with Reading. It deducted points, and we've never quite recovered. But positive. Ace Podcast Nation presents City Legends with Glenn Loovens this Friday. There is a few tickets left, so if you want the sort of £20, the meet and greet, the additional meet and greet, you can contact either Aaron or you can contact Cardiff City World via email, and we'll sort that out. And obviously, if you just want the general sale, then you can contact Cardiff City World on email, or you can contact Jordan at Splott Cons. And be great to see people there. And I'm looking forward. I always look forward to putting names to faces because I see all these names in the chat. And I think I said to you the other week when I was at the City game, like I walk in and to like the foyer and people will be going, sorry, or whatever. And like they'll say, oh, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And it's quite difficult because they never tell me their name. So I never know who I'm talking to. So I look forward to these evenings so we can meet everyone and, kind of say hello and whatnot. Anything you'd like to add, mate, before we finish our number one?
No, mate, just looking forward to it now. I can't wait.
Absolutely. Aaron, thank you very much. Commercial manager for Ace Podcast Nation. And make sure you say hello to Aaron on Friday if you see him as well. And we will see you all Friday, but I will be back in just a minute or two for the Welsh Football Hour, where I have another host of guests, including Jack Sharp from the FAW. I also have the Merthyr Town assistant manager and Tomi Caws, Wrexham fan. So stay with us for hour 2.
If you're hearing this, so are your potential customers. Be heard and reach sports fans across the country. We have advertising opportunities available throughout our programs, website, and commentaries. Working with you, we will create a bespoke package and make sure your message reaches the people you want to hear it. Contact us today to find out how Cymru Sport could help your business. Email contact@cymrusport.cymru.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Welsh Football Hour live on Cymru Sport Radio and, of course, Cardiff City World's YouTube if you're watching on the video. And that was our one where we were joined by Robert Earnshaw, and then we were joined by Ace Podcast Nation's commercial manager, Aaron Anderson, as he talked about the live event with Glenn Loovens this Friday in Splott Cons. But I'm delighted to welcome the first guest of the evening to the Welsh Football Hour. It is the FAW's head of domestic football, Mr. Jack Sharp. Welcome to the show, Jack. How are you?
Evening, I'm okay. How are you?
Yeah, very good, mate. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. And I apologize for last week. That was my mix-up with the email, and you ended up sort of double booked and stuff. That's my bad. I apologize greatly, but it's a genuine pleasure to have you join us, mate. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate you finding the time.
More than welcome, Si.
So before I bombard you with questions, because I have got a few, which people have kind of sent in, mainly relating to grassroots football. So before we do that, if you kind of just explain what your role is within the FAW and what it entails, give people a little clue.
So as you said, I'm head of domestic football at the FAW. So I get the privilege of overseeing the professional game here in Wales. So that is summed up with the top 3 tiers of the male football pyramid, the top 2 tiers of the women's football pyramid, and all those performance pathways that filter into it. So everything to do with the elite game in Wales sits on my shoulders.
Wow, so a lot of pressure on you then, isn't it?
That was good fun.
Yeah. No, I can imagine that. It sounds like a really fun job. It's Welsh football has been revolutionised. I think it's fair to say over the probably the last sort of 10 to 15 years from top to bottom, and I think there's been definite improvements, at that grassroots level. But I think the JD Cymru League is something which really interests me. Is something which I didn't pay that much attention to, if I'm honest, before I started doing this show. But then I've had the privilege of speaking to a lot of different people, from players and managers and things from within that system. There is changes coming to that pyramid, I guess, or the Welsh pyramid, as such. Could you talk us through those a little bit? Those changes which are coming.
Yeah, sure. So it's no secret. The last 30 odd years, I think the FAW will be the first to acknowledge they've neglected their own domestic game. A lot of emphasis was placed upon grassroots football, a lot of emphasis placed on the international game. But this middle bit, the bread and butter of football in the country, is completely gone under the radar. And in the last couple of years, the FAW have wanted to address and do something about it. So I've had the privilege to come in and lead the charge on this. And one of the big things, one of the big projects to begin with, was really give a direction of travel to our top flight league in Wales. So as you referenced there, the Cymru Premier is the high point, the pinnacle of Welsh football in our domestic system. It hasn't ever had a real rationale, a purpose, what good almost looks like. So last year we launched our first ever league strategy, a 6-year strategy, which looked at building the foundations around the league, really focusing on that kind of engagement, that profile building, that kind of spotlight upon our game. Because like you mentioned there are so many people that are unaware that the league existed. And so we're now trying to make our own noise, but also find our own space to do things. So it's not about trying to be a version of another league in a very saturated market where we find ourselves here in the UK, but how do we find our own voice and be something that is really uniquely Welsh? And as someone that isn't from Wales, and I say that someone's very much bought into this culture. I live here now in South Wales, really understanding what is our USP. That could be tailored to our league. So we launched that back in April, which also then followed last September. We launched and announced that the structure of the league is going to be dramatically changing from the 26-27 season. So for those that aren't aware now, we currently have 12 clubs that compete in our top flight. It's a split season. So what that means is they all play each other home and away, and then the league splits into 2. We have effectively 2 playoff groups, a championship group and a relegation group. But that's evolved into a 16-team league in 26-27 with that real kind of determination to have more representation around Cymru through the Cymru Premier. More people, more clubs in the top flight mean there's more opportunity to engage with it. And the geographical spread around the country enables us to really kind of lean into those core principles of that community and connection, that's driving our game forwards. So we're right at the beginning of a long journey. It doesn't mean that we complete it after 6 years, but we're doing something very, very different. And it's really exciting to be part of it because we're doing things that just haven't existed before here in Wales. We're almost being able to be that first almost generation of administrators, developers that are just doing things differently. And I can't tell you how exciting that is. You go and work for the EFL, the Premier League, these things are so polished that you can only fine tune them. But we've effectively gone, we're stopping everything and we're going to start this again. And we're going to really understand why we're doing something in a certain way. And how does that connect into putting Wales on a world stage, which is a real key principle for the FAW, for everything that we do. So it's a great time to jump on the bandwagon and really get under the skin of the Cymru Premier.
Yeah, and I think the way modern football is generally, I think there's a real kind of opening for the Cymru Prem and football at that level to think outside the box and do things a bit differently. I think there's a real opening for that because, you know, a lot of people, or more and more people, should I say, are getting a bit fed up with, you know, the Premier League and stuff like that. And there's a lot of complaints with VAR and things like this that is taken away from, you know, what people enjoy about a Saturday afternoon. You know, even a small thing like 3 o'clock kickoffs, you know, you hear a lot of complaints about that from people that, oh, there's only a couple of games on at 3 o'clock. And I think at the lower you go down the pyramids, the more people seem to still feel or still have the connections with their football clubs that they had 25 years ago, 30 years ago. But I feel at the top, they don't have that same connection as much now.
There's a real apathy at the moment, and it's the biggest threat to that. You know, the biggest product that we find in the England borders in the Premier League is that you don't feel part of something, you don't feel connected. You know, some football clubs, when we had lockdown, were actually in better positions not having fans in stadiums because it costs them more money to have people in the grounds, and actually they make off for ticket sales now. There's real apathy and that appetite now to almost rediscover localized tribalism. The best way Welsh football was positioned to me was by someone who used to be a manager in our league, and he said, if I could sum up the Cymru Premier and what you should really lean into, Jack, is that the Cymru Premier is a craft beer. It's not a Heineken, it's not a Madri. It's something that's a bit quirky. You might only find it in one pub, but someone is drinking it, and so it's not a taste to everyone's liking, but it's a big enough audience to really connect with. And I think that's really, really important, is that, you know, it is different. But saying that, the quality of the on-pitch product is really undervalued here in Wales. I come in from working in the EFL system, an EFL club, and I didn't actually recognise the level of quality you find here. You know, the New Saints became the first Welsh domestic club to qualify for the league stage of UEFA competition this year. You know, they've gone to Fiorentina, they've beaten Astana, who beat Man United only a few years ago in the Europa League. You know, 4, I think, of the quarterfinalists in the Conference League played TNS on that journey. And yes, at the moment, they're the only full-time team. But if you then look at the groupings beneath that, in terms of investment in the player, i.e. salaries, etc., versus the output that you get, it is significantly better value for money than what it is when you start looking into the English system. And we've done so much analytical data and benchmarking on where are our levels. And some of the big headlines are that we do have the biggest gap in world football from our best club and our weakest club through that exercise. It was the promoted clubs into the Cymru Premier. So there's no bigger gap in world football. But also when you start looking at the top end of that football pyramid, you know, we are knocking on the door of that National League level. So it really shouldn't be undervalued in terms of, this isn't going down, you know, watching park football on a Saturday afternoon with a man and his dog. You know, this is the proper game. It's just packaged in a very, very different way. It is rawer. You are, you know, 1.5 meters away from the centre forward that has bagged 20 goals for, you know, for Pennybon or whoever it might be. You feel that you're in it, that there is an atmosphere that is built around that. And so my job is to not only drive and that type of impression of our game forward and protect that and that real localism to it, but also ensure that that professionalism that you see on the pitch and around the football club is hugely, hugely enhanced. And there's so many exciting things that go into making that happen. But I would just encourage everyone. It's a shame that we're coming towards the end of the season. But if you are around the area in the next couple of weeks, we've just gone into our European playoffs. So on Saturday, we've got the quarterfinal round of our European playoffs. For those that may not be aware, this is how one of the European places at the end of the season is allocated. These are some of the biggest games that you'll find in the season around the Cymru Premier. You know, last year, Carnarvon sold out ground, first ever time qualifying for Europe, play Legia Walsall in the second round. Like, it's fairy tale stuff, that. And so there's no other country where you could effectively be a village at the base of Snowdon and play in Europe. Like, yeah, of course. It's madness when you think about it, but it's awesome on the other hand. So anyone thinking, oh, I've not actually got involved or looked at this, do so. It's a really great time of year to get a couple of games in that just mean a lot and have a huge amount of jeopardy upon them.
Absolutely, and I think that's those sort of things, those sort of games are what people fall in love with at football first. You know, they're all for all the Liverpool fans, or even Cardiff City fans, Swansea fans. These teams is you do fall in love with grassroots and with local football first because that's what you're closest to as a kid or as a young adult. So one of the things, and someone actually just asked it in the comments, but when I said about thinking outside the box, one of the things which I've thought that the JD Cymru could do is obviously you've got a lot of, for instance, a lot of Cardiff fans from Merthyr, and so when Cardiff are away, Merthyr's crowd at Penydarren Park, for instance, will be a bit higher. But I'm sure that that's the same with a lot of the Welsh, the Welsh League sides. I know when we had someone on from Carlyellaway, they said, a lot of their sort of supporters are Cardiff fans. Then they'll kind of flip between the two. So, has there ever been a consideration to maybe do like a summer season or something like that where you can have a bit of a crossover? So, when Cardiff finish up, I think they got 2 games left, for instance, and Swansea got 2 games left, whereby then the fans from those clubs can kind of go and watch their local JD Cymru team.
I'll give you a few answers, right, to
Yeah,
that question,
cool.
because we absolutely recognise, and the FAW recognises that if we're only ever putting our domestic game up against the 4 EFL clubs, and Merthyr now, 3,000 people on Monday, absolutely superb, right? Absolutely superb.
Incredible.
If we're always putting our product up against that, we know that 80% of our Cymru leagues are elite football clubs, or within an hour and a half of those clubs. It's stupid, right? It's silly. We're not going to be able to achieve things we want. As part of the strategy, we announced that we're going to predominantly have the Cymru Premier as a Friday night league. So very similar to what you see over in Ireland. And the reason why is exactly that. We've seen the uplift in attendances dramatically without any different promotion, without any different marketing, or hundreds of thousands of pounds going into positioning the game differently, purely from just moving fixtures. We've seen a significant increase. So if I told you every single domestic club in the Cymru Premier, their worst attendances this season have been on a Saturday afternoon. Their best attendances have been on Friday nights or public holidays. Now, if you said to someone Saturday afternoon worst attendances, you'd think, hang on, what's going on here? But we've just got this uniqueness in Wales in terms of the football geography of having our elite clubs not be part of the system. So we've got to make the system work for us. And Friday night is given out. We've tracked the data this year and we've seen some significant improvements. And this challenges that come with playing on a Friday night in terms of, we've got part-time athletes predominantly playing in the league with dual careers. How do we get around that? How do we build the financial frameworks in order to enable clubs to feel that they can deliver that model? And that's upon me to make sure that we do that over the next 12 months. So that's point number 1. Point number 2, when you're talking around a summer league and all things like this is where, and I don't expect anybody to understand any of this rationale unless you've worked in regulation, in sport and football in particular. There are many things that we do at the FAW which are connected into a home nations agreement. So the transfer window, great example of that, right? Our transfer window will open and shut in and around the same time on the same day. There's not huge disparity between the two. Okay. When it comes to then aligning conference dates and fixture calendars, these are the things that you've got to factor into consideration, is that for us to do certain things, we might have to break away from some of these agreements. Now, it's not to say in the future we wouldn't do that, but we've never done a piece of work to wholly understand the much wider impact. Because I could do that for the elite game, but if I do that, what does that now mean for the grassroots team? What does it now mean for the safeguarding team and their relationships and connections over here? So we are looking at this, not to say that we're doing anything with it, but it'd be remiss of us not to understand it. But at this moment in time, we believe that positioning our game in its own slot and in its own window gives us the best opportunity now, with all the things that are currently in play, to increase attendances, engagement in grounds, as well as engagement on the broadcast. That's really important too. So if we want to increase spotlight, we can't just do it by getting people into grounds. It's got to look good in the ground. So there's fan experience at the heart of what we're going to do. The match day experience has got to be great, which also will then help with the viewer at home look at this and almost give it some credibility, maybe want to be around it. So there's so many things that go into packaging this together. And like I said, Si, we're just over 12 months into a very long journey. We're playing 100 years worth of catch up on some nations, on most nations, at least 30 good years. So we're trying to find ways where for every single season that we tick off, it's almost worth 3 or 4 in the bag. So it's not about shortcutting things, but we're moving at such a pace that we're only able to do this because the clubs are enabling us to move at that pace with us. So as we go along, we're going to find things like this that we need to unpack, unravel, fully understand before making those decisions on what we do.
What was the general consensus and feedback from the from all the Welsh league clubs when you implemented these changes and announced the changes that'll come in 26-27? Was it largely positive, negative, bit in between?
I think that on the whole, the clubs have been unbelievable embracing change. Change management is one of the most difficult things to steer people through, let alone when you're trying to bring a whole football ecosystem with you. So a part of that is being very, very clear and honest, transparent, and saying things when people don't necessarily want to hear the things you want to say either. It's the good and the bad to build that trust. I think what's really helped is that we've got a very clear direction to travel that is strategically orientated. So decisions are made to that. So it's not, on Jack Sharp's agenda, and this is what he thinks today. Decisions are being made with a body of work in mind. So this is how we're going to get there, and either be part of the journey, or if you're a threat to the journey, then there's obviously consequence to that. My job is to not make decisions for clubs. My job is to make decisions for this country, for football reasons. And so as long as we keep that at the heart of our decision-making process, people will come on that journey and people will get off on the journey, and that's just nature. But when you navigate change, it's always going to be that little bit messy, but on the whole, it's been really, really positive. And I'm saying that because, to my point, we've had 30 years of not a lot of support going into domestic football. So the starting point is always a bit of skepticism. Hang on, what's going on here? Why now? So it's really important that we're very much driving a lot of what we're doing with evidence-based outcomes, physically showing change, not just talking about change, but being able to demonstrate what we're doing. So where we've funded full-time people in clubs to professionalize, where we've changed our kind of investment strands in clubs and keeping very clear dialogue in terms of how that's evolving going into 26-27, where the financial and commercial framework is going to completely change around the league. It's not just saying we're going to do things, it's acting upon them and showing that there is physical change happening.
The other thing I was going to ask is, you said about, or you mentioned earlier, TNS being the one full-time club within the system. Is there a kind of long-term plan, hope that, you want everyone within the JD Prem to eventually be full-time, or is that a pipe dream, do you think?
It's definitely not a pipe dream. It's careful I don't blur the lines. I'm not employed. My job is to not tell the clubs what to do. There'll be some clubs that are really happy with this model that they're delivering. It can be the best version of what they are, and that's great, and that should be celebrated. And there are some clubs, absolutely, that are looking at trying to go into hybrid full-time models and want to escalate the blueprint that TNS has put down there. Now, we know that's currently a cost base that doesn't exist in the system, but we're trying to build the framework where the FAW doesn't enable the clubs to go full-time. The system that they play in, the activity that the clubs deliver themselves, that enables them to go full-time. So it's not based if they choose to. So what I mean by that is if we're upskilling clubs to be more commercially sound, more commercially minded, we're developing the on-pitch product, we're bringing a new profile of athlete into the league, we've got stronger commercial rights at our end. All of this goes into the mixing pot to give clubs the confidence that they can absorb a cost base to at least be in a hybrid model. And there are some clubs that want to do that in the next few years, and there are some clubs where that probably isn't going to be something that comes on their agenda. And going back to one of my earlier points in terms of understanding and leaning into what is our USP, our USP might be having a hybrid league of some clubs do that, some clubs don't do that. But if you take this year, for example, TNS haven't had it all their own way. Yes, they've won the league, but they lost more games of football this season than they had done in the last 3 years. So the quality around the rest is really driving forward at a rate. One of our best seasons in Europe as a collective this year in a long time. So we've not called out the on-pitch product as one of the key driving bits to the beginning of the strategy. That will come. It's the other stuff. It's the spotlighting, profiling, engaging, going for a social, and going down to a Friday night game in Barry, have a beer with your mates because you're a Cardiff City season ticket holder. And I can't be asked sitting at home, but just down the road, I can get really good level of football. And by the way, there's a couple of wonder kids that have just come out of Cardiff's Academy and signed on loan to Barry. Let's go and have a look at them, and let's just have a bit of a social. If we can get to that position where every EFL fan has got a domestic club in Wales in the Cymru Premier or in the Cymru leagues, that they're also getting wrapping around, football fan getting football fix. You can have Friday night and a Saturday. You've got football coming out your ears, and you're not having to pick one or the other. You can just celebrate football in Wales and enjoy the uniquenesses of both.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a very big proponent of like that outside the box thinking in football, but also elsewhere. In anything you do, I think there's sometimes ideas get lost because they've got to come a certain way, or they've got to be a certain structure or whatever. I think there's something to be said for it. I really like, for instance, what you were saying about the Friday night games. Like, that makes so much sense to me because I know so many Cardiff fans, for instance, which is, largely my sort of viewer base, and also the people who I socialize with, who just enjoy going to watch football with their friends. And, if Cardiff are away or they're playing on Sunday or Saturday, they would love to go and watch Welsh League football. So I think that's a massive plus point. Have you seen or has there been much of a difference this season in terms of attendances of Welsh League? It seems like, sort of from the outside, if you like, that the more and more people are talking about the JD Prem.
Well, first of all, that's good because it means we're doing some things right, which is class. But yes, we have, in terms of percentages, in some clubs we've seen some significant uplifts. There are challenges with some others, and it's really important we understand them. We work through them. But we've got this really unique opportunity to do something very different to get this bit right. We could go from here to here very, very quickly through the work that we're doing with our clubs around that whole connection space and making sure that the club is seen more than a football club. When we're looking at that local professional football, which is what we are, it's not losing the fact that the football club cannot just be something that is seen every 2 weeks at a home game. It's how is the football club utilised 7 days a week, not just its facilities, but almost like what is it doing for its community. Obviously, I know you've got Andy on later. Merthyr have done that unbelievably well, right? They've done it fantastically well in terms of leaning into that and making sure that the football club is seen more than just the Saturday afternoon product every other week. And that's what we've really got to get right with our Cymru League's clubs, is that how do we build the connection that it isn't just about me going to watch some blokes playing football, but the club has real meaning and purpose in my life. And in doing that, that's where we're going to see the attendances go bang. And then if we can layer on the fact that there is going to be this football fanatic that is a season ticket holder at the EFL clubs and the ground hoppers and whatnot, we'll really be on to a winner. We've not got grounds that can hold 25,000 people. These are really kind of raw, unique, but brilliant non-league grounds that are hosting, the professional game. People forget that it is a professional league. There is no difference between the governance being asked of our clubs than the Premier League clubs. The only difference is around the broadcasting requirements, right? But in terms of legislation, regulation, directive from UEFA, there is no difference. So it is this just charmingly, brilliantly unique, bonkers football ecosystem which dines at the top table but represents the rawness of non-league football, and I love it. I just think it is just so awesome to be part of and so different that it should be celebrated and engaged with more than it is, and that's my job to make sure that people feel that they can.
Of course. Jack, if I could fire a couple of questions, just which people have sent in.
Yeah, sure.
A lot of them are about grassroots football, so I know, like, you may or you may not be able to answer. But one of the things when I had mentioned or had put up on socials over the last couple of days that you were one of the guests this evening, a few people straight away said that the FAW only care about the Welsh Prem. They don't care about the kind of system and the clubs underneath that, and they pointed to a few different infamous incidents, over the last 12 months, and things like abuse of referees and assaults and things like this, which have taken place during games, which obviously creates a view of being a bit, amateurish, if you like, and stuff like that. What would you say to the people that say that the Welsh FA don't care about that sort of system below the Cymru Prem?
We'll give you two parts. So I when in my introduction, I said that I am responsible for the top three tiers of the game, which is our national pyramid. Now, grassroots is sat outside of that, so it wouldn't be fair of me to talk about things that I'm not involved with. But what I can say before I go back to my bit, I can talk about, there are some phenomenal people in the FAW that are deeply, deeply connected to the game and deeply care about the work that they deliver. So how things may be interpreted, we're a governing body, so we're always going to be seen in a slightly negative, skeptical light, because we've got to make decisions, because believe it or not, governing bodies have got to govern. We don't always get it right? Absolutely. I've not got my bit right all the time, and it's really important that we do, in the right forums, we hold our hands up when that doesn't happen, because we are all on a journey together. But the fact, the comments around, do the FAW care? Absolutely. I see the grassroots team, for example, day in, day out on what they do. I see what the area associations do at localized football in Wales. It is phenomenal what they are doing for their communities. So we're always going to be there to be shut out and criticised, and it's like I said, we won't do everything right, but it isn't through effort, it isn't through care, and it isn't through trying to do the right things for Wales. In regard then to my bit around the national pyramid, we absolutely, and it's important that I am very consistent with this message. The Cymru Premier, when it comes to the elite game, is the priority. It's our North Star. It's the Cymru Premier that will drive new investment into Wales to then place through the football pyramid. Right, you don't invest in League Two in England to make it the best product, then go, there you go, Premier League, have some of the League Two money. We haven't had a North Star before, so we have got to not be afraid to make decisions first and foremost for the professional game through that lens first. But saying that, we've never had more support trickle through the system. I'm not too sure how adverse you are with what we announced recently, but we launched the Future Growth Fund this year, a 7-figure pot of money just for tier 2 clubs to enable the Cymru North and the Cymru South clubs to get closer and achieve tier 1 licenses to play in the Cymru Premier. That hasn't existed before. That's been investment that I've pulled out strategically to say, we've got to put this into this system in order for the health of our national football pyramid to move forwards. We're having more dialogue than ever with our tier 3, our Dell leagues. They are our regional leagues. They are our entry point of the national pyramid. We're currently, discussing with our clubs and with the managing committee that delivers that North and South. How do we evolve that structure? How do we build a stronger purpose around it? How do we make it more investable to ensure that it really does merit, being the entry point of the national game? So the FAW, I personally believe, and from hearing people, it's probably never been in a better space in terms of being really strategically driven over a number of things. We see what the national team are doing. We know what the women are doing at the moment, going to Switzerland and the successes there. We see what Craig is now delivering, in terms of a feeling for the country in the men's game. There's so much stuff happening for Welsh football that it is all going in the right direction. But change doesn't just go like that. There's going to be a bit of this in between. And I'll be open and honest enough to admit that we don't always get it right, but it's not through the lack of care. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, I think, look, I can only obviously speak of my own experiences. I'm heavily involved in grassroots football in my area, but I've also had the privilege of having you on this evening. We've had conversations with Noel Mooney and hosted the event with Craig. I've never been particularly impressed with the FAW, and I'm open about that. Back in the day, I really thought it was a struggle, shall we say. But I think in recent years, you can see a difference. You can see that there's people who are very passionate about what they're doing, and there's a strategic plan, which just simply wasn't there a long time ago. Like when I was a kid or a teenager, say, coming up, which is a long time ago, those sort of strategic plans, they weren't in place. There weren't the people there to put them in place, and there certainly wasn't people who were as passionate as the people who I see at the FAW at the moment. That being said, I think there is a real issue at grassroots level with regards to the state of the pitches, like the grass pitches. As soon as there's a bit of rain, they're pretty much unplayable. But then equally, the 3G, 4G pitches are so highly priced that teams struggle. And I know you're more focused on that sort of JD Cymru, but one question which Rob, who works for my channel, mentioned was that he had an instance where his under-10s team in I forget the area, but I think it's at Carlyellaway or just outside Carlyellaway. They had a grass game. It was postponed, so he booked a 3G pitch, which was in Carlyellaway, but it was only 2 minutes from where their home pitches, their grass pitch was, and they were told by, I'd assume, someone within the FAW system that they weren't able to play that game because it was in Philly and it's outside their jurisdiction. And that just means that obviously, 20 kids missed out on football that weekend. And that seems like a really bureaucratic issue which could be avoided. But it's the lack of pitches, and then the price of the 3G pitches is a huge issue for all grassroots teams.
Yeah, and there's been some examples that obviously we see what goes on out there. We see the challenges that happen to the game, and there's been a bit of an incident recently, hasn't there? There's had a bit of profile behind it in the same area around access to 3Gs. I think that we as a country have a very, very unique weather system that sits over us, which does impact the ability to play football because we haven't got all of these facilities, like you said. The CFF, who for the FAW's charitable arm that invest in facilities, are doing a fantastic job in terms of rolling out as much investment as possible. The FAW's never invested more in the last 2 years, never, in trying to build, strategic hubs that are not just in locations which will not be used or only used on a Saturday morning. How do we build facilities to be at the heart of communities? How do we then, leverage schools? How do we leverage grassroots clubs? How do we leverage, in some instances, other sports, right? Because I think that's going to be the big next evolution for football, in particular in Wales, is that how do we prop up others and bring others on a journey and have that kind of cross collaboration in what we do. It's something that, as I mentioned, I'm not directly involved with, but it would be remiss of me not to be able to use my platform and not to be able to use the influence I have to still have those conversations, inside the building. We're aware of it. There are challenges that we've got to overcome. There's lots of really exciting work looking at how do we actually solve the challenge that is in front of us. So no one's putting their head in the sand. No one's burying their head in the sand. They're very real issues. They're very live issues. If we want to then connect it to my area of the game and above, where do we think elite footballers of the future for Wales are going to come from?
Of course,
from the grassroots system, right? Yeah. And grassroots is not just there. It's not there at all to be a priority to service the elite game. Just to stress, it should be recreational. It should be fun. It should be socially orientated. But to your point, if you're not playing football, how can it be fun? Well, you're not playing. It's not. If it's socially orientated and you're not playing football, you're not being sociable with your mates. So there are things that we've got to get right. But again, there's so much happening, but maybe not quite at the rate that it needs to happen. But that is also just a reality of us being a fairly small association in relation to the outputs and demands on us. But things are happening. Really exciting things happen. I'm not going to go into detail over some of the stuff because it's still very, very live. But we have taken notice, and the people that need to take notice have taken notice. And I don't think we're too far away from seeing some quite different action being introduced in the not too distant future.
Yeah, I think just to finish off on the sort of grassroots thing, which I know is a bit outside of your remit, but sorry, one of the most obvious things to me, for instance, with my son's team, is at the start of the season we don't have any midweek games, and then at the end of the season, because we lose, middle of December till the end of January every year, we've lost that to warlog pitches, rain, Christmas, etc. But then at the end of the year, they're trying to fit in games. Sometimes it's like Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, because they've got to get it done by a certain date. And I always think, well, why didn't you just, fit in start the season 2 weeks earlier, or fit in the midweek games when the sun's out? It doesn't make any sense to me. But when you approach the people who dish out the fixtures, they are, what's the best word to describe it? They're a bit combative, should we say? And it gets very, you feel very downtrodden as a coach or a helper within that system. Then,
yeah, and you're talking to an audience that doesn't sit aligned with maybe some of the things that we're doing here. But what I would say is that, my background to begin with in sports, I've worked in community sport, I've worked in sports development. It's not just blanket coverage that solves it all either. So, in particular, we know in Wales that every territory in Wales has got its own challenges, from the grassroots clubs which share facilities with other sports like cricket. So, the impact of having an overlapping season with another sport means that you may not get priority on those pitches through to ground sharing with our clubs, not owning the facility. There's just so many things that go into why, some games can be played, some games can't be played. But just to reiterate my point, no one's standing still with its side. I think that there's an understanding there's always improvement that can be made. And that's really adopted. You may not feel it firsthand at the moment, but in the FAW, it's very much adopted to embrace change and keep moving. So we're not going to solve this problem overnight, but we can improve the issue, or we can help with solutions as we move forward. So keep with it.
Cool. Jack, thank you so much for joining me this evening, mate. I really appreciate you. And look, I could have fire questions at you all day, but I think it's unfair to fire questions at you that are kind of outside your remit at the end of the day. And I think I appreciate you taking the time to go through all the JD Cymru stuff, because that was something which I was keen to speak to you about and get a better understanding of myself, and hopefully people have got a better understanding of what the FAW is trying to do with the Welsh Pyramid in the future, because I think it's overdue in one way, but it's refreshing to see in the other way that Welsh football is not just stuck, doing the same thing always, and it's looking to evolve itself and become its own thing that can appeal to people.
No worries, Si. If you need anything, mate, just drop me a note. But thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time. And up next, Nostar, mate. Up next, we've got Merthyr Town assistant manager, Mr. Andy Smith.
Cymru Sport.
Welcome back, and I'm Si. This is the Welsh Football Hour, and as we go into the final part of the show, I'm delighted to be joined by Merthyr Town assistant manager, Mr. Andy Smith. Champion, as it were. How are you, mate? You good?
Yeah, all good, mate. A good couple of days, so it's been a fantastic time for everyone at the football club.
Yeah, you're nice and calm now, is it? You weren't so calm on Monday, was it? And a bit more noisy then.
Yeah, it was a strange few days, really. We played Good Friday away at Shoalin. We took 250, 300 fans down there, and at the end of the game, we found out that Tottenham were chasing us a drew, which meant that we were 6 points clear with 2 games left, but our goal difference was like plus 16. So even though it wasn't officially done, we sort of knew it was done. So we probably over-celebrated a bit Friday, but it was good. And then, to do it at home, then to seal it at home in front of over 3,000 fans at Pendown Park was just, that's a memory that will live long in a lifetime, I think.
He's sorry, excuse me. it must have been like an incredible season to be part of this team, because I've been watching. I got a lot of friends who follow Merthyr, and it looks like something which is just a pleasure to be a part of. A very community spirited thing, and everyone seems very together. The players, with the fans as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, the boys that we've got, the players we've got, they know how. The history behind it, and it's quite unique for non-league to have the following that we do. There's a hardcore of 400, 500 fans up there. If you ask me their support, it's Merthyr Town, whereas a lot of non-league clubs, they're everyone's second team, but up there, they're a fanatical bunch, and they support us through every ups and downs. So yeah, it's a unique thing, and the boys know they're fortunate to be involved there, and it's our job then to create that environment where they want to enjoy their football and they know they'll be loved. So yeah, it's been 3 years of hard work, got there, and hopefully we can kick on even further.
Yeah, you've done so. You've done it playing some great football, mate, as well. In fairness to you, the everything which I've seen is like genuinely good football. Like, it's not what maybe years ago people would have expected of non-league football, or the that sort of tier football, where it was just like long ball, muddy, dreadful pitches and stuff. It's not like that. Like, it's genuinely, Merthyr have played some really good football this year.
Yeah, we've been fortunate to inherit some very good technical players. When me and Paul first went there, obviously the club had just been relegated, and to be honest, we expect to go there and to have a big overhaul of players. But I'll never forget that first training session we put on, and we looked at each other and we thought, shit, these boys can play, so it's just giving them that organisation, that structure, that environment, and hats off to them. They have absolutely flourished, and we wouldn't play that way if we didn't have the players to do it. But I think, to be honest, non-league is improving. I think it is filtering down now. I played non-league many years ago when it was put it in the channel, get them turned, and it was all that. But now it's a lot more technical, a lot more tactical, and but yeah, we've earned points for the way we've played, but we can only do it with the boys that we've got. So yeah, hopefully that whole team get in.
How tell me, how did you guys end up at Merthyr then? Like, what was the journey like to get there?
So me and Paul both managed in the Welsh League. I was at Monmouth Town, Paul was at Risca. We were both PE teachers, so we knew each other that way. Paul then got the job at Cinderford Town 8 years ago now, and I sent him a message just to wish him all the best, and then he's asked me to get on board, and I've jumped at the chance, to be honest. So we had a good few years at Cinderford, got them into the playoffs on a very low budget. Bit of a strange one, couldn't go up even if we won the playoffs. We lost in the final, but we knew even before that if we'd won the playoffs, we couldn't go up because it was based on a points per game structure with other leagues around the country. So that was a strange one. But then we then got the job at Yate Town in the Southern Prem, one league above where Cinderford were. Just narrowly missed out on the playoffs there. And then Merthyr was sort of struggling, looked like they were getting relegated, and sort of conversations were going on, but we stayed with Yate to the end of the season. And then even though Merthyr got relegated, no disrespect to Yate and Cinderford, the clubs we've been at, we knew that the ceiling and the potential was a lot higher at a club like Merthyr, and we jumped at the chance and put a 3-year plan in. First year was to try and get promoted back into the Southern Prem, and we were fortunate to have that reprieve because Walton Casuals dropped out the league. And then sort of consolidate and then have a real go for it in year 3, and that's where we've ended up. And thankfully, we've finished top.
Yeah, and I mean, like someone's just put in the comments there. He's just identified himself as M, but he says, Smudger, I can't thank you enough for the amazing job you, Paul, Craig, and all the staff and players have done for the club this season. The potential for the club is huge, and I can only see it growing. And I think, I don't think that's wrong. I got to be honest. I see a lot of potential, from the outside, obviously, but I see potential in the football club. The fan base is there. Like for Merthyr, it's always been there. It's just getting them to engage with it. And I think this season and probably last season, I think just this season has probably caught the eye more on things like social media. But the fans are there, and you could see there's so many happy faces there was the last few weeks. Like, I just keep having these videos sent to me of my friends, just in the crowd having the best time of their life.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, I mean, like obviously with the elite game is sort of pricing the regular punters out of the game now, whereas at non-league level, you can go and stand where you want. You can stand with a group of mates. You can have a pint on the terrace, and you can then half hour after the game, you're in the bar with the players. So, and it's something that doesn't really happen in the elite game. So a lot of fans are sort of disenchanted with that, and I think are stepping down to that non-league level because, like you said, the standard is growing as well. And I do believe there'll be a big shift in the next 5-10 years of seeing crowds growing and growing at non-league level.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of apathy, isn't there, towards the kind of elite game, if you like, and like you say, it's not just the pricing, it's this VAR and all these different aspects that are just turning people away. And I get, the Premier League is like the most viewed league in the world and all this stuff, but I do think that it's turning people away because all the things that you fall in love with about football when you're a kid are slowly being etched away at that level. Whereas whenever I've been to a Welsh League game, I've been down with my local team, sort of Cardiff Met or like Taffswell. Whenever I've gone down to Taffswell, it's just that it's a pleasant experience. Like you say, you can have a pint on the terraces, you can watch the football, you chat to the players afterwards, and the standard of football is pretty good. So it's just an enjoyable out, and it reminds me of why I fell in love with football, which I know sounds strange, but it is genuine. It just reminds me of what I really sort of enjoyed about football when I was a kid.
Yeah, and it's like the number of kids that were on the pitch on Monday after the game and on shoulders and singing. My boy's 10 and he gets up the park now every home game. He's learning some naughty words on the terrace singing songs, but he absolutely loves it, and but he's there. He's watching football week in, week out, and he's getting amongst it. Whereas when you watching football on the telly, which a lot of his mates do, they're not really submerged in it, and it's not quite the same.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not the same as when you're in it and you go in, week out. I think that's where you get that affinity and that love for a club or whatnot. Well, just on the season, mate, do you feel?
Yes.
Were you a little surprised that Tottenham, they just that draw let them down the other day, didn't it, on the Good Friday? Because they pushed you quite hard all the way through the season, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, full credit to them. I mean, we lost 2 games in August, and then we went 32 games unbeaten. I think in any other season, you normally win the league then with 5-6 games to spare. But to be fair to Tottenham, they were on our tails all the way. And they've got some quality in their ranks. They've got some ex-EFL players. They've got Charlie Austin, who's played Premier League football, scored 29 goals one season, I think. So, yeah, full credit to them. But it was like they're a more direct team, whereas we always had in the back of our mind, we try and break through teams. Tottenham they were grinding out results when that was going to come to an end. And March was a big month. We played them away start of March, which was a really big game. We drew the game 1-1. And then they went on a bit of a poor run, and we ended up at 11 points clear of them at one point, and we thought it's done and dusted. And then April came, and we had our little wobble, and then we then lost 2 on the spin, and they won there too, and the gap was down to 4. But no, they're a top side with top players. So that playoff is going to be, there's 4 teams that are in there with big budgets. One of the team looks like having to probably sneak in. They're hybrid, So yeah, we didn't really want to be in those playoffs because let's say it's an old, cliche. It's a lottery in there, but it's hard to pick who's going to win that. So we're just really glad that we've got over the line and we can enjoy that last game now and celebrate with our fans away at Basingstoke. I think we're taking a few again. It should be a party atmosphere and we can go and play with the shackles off now. So yeah, but it's been a great season, but it's one of relief now that we've finally done it.
Yeah, and mate, congratulations to you, because I think, like you say, you don't want the stress of the playoffs, do you? Because playoffs are just the most stressful thing ever. But yeah, congratulations, mate. I really appreciate you joining me this evening, and hopefully we'll get you on again soon. And for a bit of a longer chat on that. But yeah, congratulations again, mate. And enjoy the Basingstoke game, mate, because that's a proper shackles off, just a nice, no pressure in it. Go enjoy it.
Exactly. Yeah, much appreciated. Cheers, mate. Thanks for having us on.
No worries. Cheers, mate. Welcome. Right. So big thank you to Andy for joining me. And of course, thank you to all my guests. But I still got one more for you. And I'm really looking forward to it. We got Tomi Caws, a Wrexham fan. How are you, mate? You good?
Very well, thank you. Yeah, I'm still suffering a little bit from the old laryngitis. Still sound a bit like Sean Dyche. But apart from that, mate, I'm not too bad. How are you?
Good, mate. Good. Well, I say good. When it comes to football, I'm pretty depressed. But apart from that, I'm good,
I can imagine, pal. It's not going too well down there, mate, is it?
No, it's not pretty. It's not pretty at all. And yeah, it could. Well, it's interesting because it could be all over on Saturday. If Hull get a point or they win and we don't win, and it's all over anyway. But if it goes to the last game of the season, it's going to be proper stress. So, but that's what we live for, innit? Football, the ups, the downs, and I think you're still hoping for that sort of fairy tale, get out of jail on the last day of the season, sort of thing. But how have you found this season, mate?
Yeah, it's been. Do you know what? It's been the strangest season following Wrexham that I can ever remember, to be honest. And there's been one or two strange seasons, let me tell you that. But yeah, I think it's been fantastic, really, in the sense of I don't think too many Wrexham fans were expected to have been going for automatic promotion. I think one or two, myself included, would have been hoping we could have been having a go at the playoffs. But yeah, in terms of results, it's been a dream come true, really, mate. Over the moon with how it's gone. It's been a little bit dull at times in terms of the way Parky plays. One of my mates calls him Jurassic Parkinson, which is a little bit harsh. He's done an incredible job. But you know what? I'm one of these. I really don't care. We could play awful football, and I'm sure as a Cardiff fan, I've got a lot of Cardiff mates. You take some grim football if you got results. I'm sure. But yeah, it's been brilliant on the field, mate. Still got a lot of work to do off the field, I think. But yeah, I'm over the moon. I've got to say, I remember I grew up in the 90s when Wrexham, Cardiff, and Swansea were all neck and neck really for a lot of the time. A couple of relegations, couple of promotions amongst us. But yeah, certainly the three of us were neck and neck, and I was looking forward to getting promotion and having all three of us in the same league again. But hopefully, I'm still hoping Cardiff can do it. But yeah, it doesn't look fantastic for you guys.
Yeah, I'm the same as you, mate. I'm a 90s kid, innit? So I remember what it was like for Cardiff and Swansea and Wrexham to all be quite close together. Good days, mate. And I'm the same as you. I was really looking for. I was hoping Wrexham were going to get promoted this year, and then hoping that Cardiff and Swansea would be where they were, and then all three would be in the Championship. Maybe. I doubt it though. A couple of questions straight away in a chat for you. Reese wants to know if you were Juan Agate or Paul Mullin.
I think we're all guilty of getting a little bit misty-eyed over the past, haven't we? So yeah, I'll go for Juan Agate. Mullin's been amazing. I love the guy, but no, I don't think Mullin's ever scored 5 away at Hartlepool. So yeah, we'll go for Juan, I think.
Do you know we had the Tim from Fearless in Devotion podcast on last week? Actually, we sort of just talking about the season and stuff, and I asked him, but what did you make of the kind of Paul Mullin and the calls for him to be in the Welsh squad? Did you think that it was he should have been in there, or was it a bit OTT?
You've done me dirty there. You know that I was calling for him to be in the. No, I'm only joking. At the time, I genuinely felt, and I've been made to look a bit silly, and I've held my hands up as well. The way he was playing in league, in the National League, I know, which is ridiculous. But in League Two, especially, he was banging them in. He was fantastic, and we've had League Two players represent us before. I genuinely felt he was a viable option. But at the same time, in my defence, some of the games under Rob Page were pretty grim, and I was thinking we can't get any worse than Mullin here, surely. But yeah, looking back now, listen. Mullin struggled this year. He's had injuries. You've got to say that he's had injuries, but yeah, he's been pretty poor this year in League One. That said, I think maybe he's been harshly treated by Parkinson this year. I think perhaps he deserved a little bit better, but at the same time, we were able to go out and spend a bit of money on, well, certainly on wages on Jay Rodriguez. But at the same time, he's been really, really poor as well. So
Is he?
he has, yeah, he hasn't hit the ground running at all. But it's still, I suppose, it's still early days. He's what 10, 15 games into his Wrexham career, but he hasn't been good at all, really. But yeah, going back to the Mullin thing, yeah, I hold my hands up. Maybe that was a silly one, but I think we all get a little bit biased towards our own players at times, don't we? So yeah, it's one of them.
Yeah, 100%, mate. We all do it, and I think, look, you are right. Under Robert Page, it was painful at times, and I think, you know, it's like you said, can it be any worse than this, really? So it's just like one of them, isn't it? I was never against it. I just thought, I think there was one squad where I can't remember what the friendly was, but a friendly came, and I was like, well, you may as well chuck him in then for this friendly, because half of them have pulled out anyway. And it was just sort of like it seemed like a no-brainer. I'm not even sure if it was at your ground, the friendly. Yeah. I can't remember, but yeah, it just felt like that was the game if it was going to happen, and it never quite happened. But do you think he'll still be a Wrexham player next year, or do you think he might be farewell now in the summer? Because I feel sorry for him, right? Because the man had a punctured lung. And other injuries, like he wasn't just he's had like about his knees have gone or something. Like he had a real serious injury, and I think any person would struggle recovering from a punctured lung and other injuries. I think he had spinal surgery as well, didn't he, or something along those lines. Speaking as someone who's had spinal surgery and still lives with like the aftermath of it, it's hard. But I'm not a professional athlete. It might surprise you to know. And like he also had a punctured lung. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I just think people sometimes get a bit carried away. Like, let's let him recover a little bit physically. But I guess he's not getting any younger either. And it's a difficult one because Wrexham fans love him, don't they? But do you think he survives the season?
Yeah, he's always going to be loved at Wrexham. There's no doubt about that. Still, well, the murals that they've been painted around town over the last 2 years show that. But no, I don't think he'll be there, to be honest. I think he'll be on his way. I think it's probably the right time, maybe at the end of the season if we go up. It's still not set in stone yet, certainly. I think maybe it'll be time for him to go for everyone's well-being, perhaps. And he will go as an absolute stone cold Wrexham legend. There's just no doubt about it at all. But yeah, if rumours are to be believed, I think they've had a little bit of a fallout and things like that. Going back to what you're saying about the injuries, absolutely bang on side. Couldn't agree more. I think he hasn't had a proper pre-season since I think 2022 or 2021. He's had surgery. 2 seasons on the trot. So yeah, there's reasons behind the fact that he hasn't been able to get into this season. And to be fair, last season he was injured for the first couple of months of the season, came in and ended up scoring 25 goals in League Two. So he managed to do it last year, but League One, it's a different level. And yeah, I think his injuries have caught up with him. And do you know what? I hope he gets a good move. I think he probably deserves a sort of League One / top of League Two club. And, I'm sure he'll do really well wherever he goes. And Wrexham fans will keep an eye on him because he has been a legend. He's dragged us out of non-league, which was initially the hardest. I mean, that's the hardest promotion we've had was the National League. League Two was quite easy by comparison. I don't want to count my chickens yet, but, it looks like maybe we're close to getting up from League One as well. So, I just heard myself speaking then saying it's a dream come true. I can't believe we're going to do this. I remember, you'll remember as well in the 90s, Wrexham was sort of a mid-table team. And yeah, to think that maybe we'll be in the Championship is crazy, really.
Yeah, it's an incredible story, isn't it? And I always, I said last week, but I say it again, like this, we've all seen the Disney Plus thing and the social media stuff that you get because the owners are who they are. But for me, the thing which interests me more than that is the fans' journey. The guys like you who've been there since the 90s and been there when it wasn't very good at times, and when you were worried about whether the club might survive at times. And then you get to live this just mental dream where like these two of the biggest names in Hollywood come and buy your football club and then just get you promoted back to back. Like that's what every football fan wants from their club, innit? Is to be bought by someone with a shed load of cash and then just have success after success. Everyone wants that. And if they say they don't, they're just lying, because everyone wants that. And I think that's where the jealousy comes from.
Yeah, I do think so. You know, when people do sort of somersaults to sort of say why they wouldn't want it, it's like, I genuinely wouldn't want that for my club. Be like, yeah, of course you wouldn't.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of them. Yeah, do you know what? I'm the sort of bloody nightmare hipster idiot that probably would have said that as well. Say Chester was being took over by them, I'd be like, I don't want it. I hate Chester. But yeah, it's one of them. It's it's been amazing, mate. It's been absolutely incredible. It's not, football for me isn't all about success, but I mean, we were going nowhere in non-league, and you know, we were losing to teams like Maidstone at home and people like that, and it's just like, this isn't the Wrexham I remember. Don't get me wrong, this is going to go far beyond the Wrexham I remember in the 90s, but for me, it was all about getting back to a sort of level which I felt Wrexham were sort of deserving of. That sounds a little bit, I don't know, that sounds a little bit arrogant maybe. I don't mean it in that way. I just mean that I think every club has their sort of level. I've always said Wrexham's level, to me, was always like a mid-table League One. I think that's where we always were as a club. I think the club's grown now. I think that's changed a little bit. But I do like to keep my feet on the ground. There's a few of the newer fans, let's say, who are talking about, you know, I mean, I know Ryan Reynolds and Ron McElhenney have spoken about, you know, not building a new stadium, but increasing the capacity to crazy levels, and that's not something I really want to see. I don't want to, you know, I don't want Wrexham to be talking about 35, 40,000 seater stadium. I just don't think that's us. I don't think there's any need. You know, I hate to bring this up with you guys. I love the Cardiff City Stadium. I love it for Wales games, but I mean, you know, I'm sure that a lot of Cardiff fans would love to go back to Ninian Park and that wonderful 20,000 cauldron of noise as it was. It was, what a ground that was. It was incredible. Ditto Swansea with a vet, although, you know, 20,000 probably about right for Swansea. These old grounds, I think we've got something special with the racecourse. I think it'd be a shame to lose it if we made it so big that, you know, I mean, success doesn't last forever. When the success goes away, are we still going to fill a 35,000 seat stadium in Wrexham? I really, really don't think so. So, yeah, sorry for going off on a tangent.
No, you're good, mate.
Yeah, that's the one thing. I don't want us to lose our soul. And, you know, I know a lot of outsiders think we already have. I don't think we have. We've still got that soul. It's still a nucleus of local people that, you know, when I go into the turf or the Mice Gwyn or whatever, it's still the same faces I saw 5 years ago. It's just that there's perhaps, you know, they're perhaps going to every game rather than picking their games when Maidstone are in town, for example.
Yeah. No, and I think ultimately, like you said, mate, like I'm one of them. Like I miss Ninian Park deeply, like because the atmosphere when Ninian Park was like full, there was nothing like it. Yeah. And you would never, even though there's reasons why it doesn't, the atmosphere is not very good in the Cardiff City Stadium generally. There is a few different logistical reasons for it. But ultimately, you are still never going to recreate that atmosphere from Ninian Park in that stadium. It's just never going to happen. To quote someone who quotes on my videos all the time, it's a soulless bowl. But it's ultimately it is what it is. But you can get an atmosphere in that ground. I think Cardiff proved that on Monday and the Swansea game this year, the Wales games. But as soon as it does go a bit quiet, it's very quiet.
Yeah,
for whatever reason, and like I think you saw that in I think it was the last Wales game.
Yeah,
the atmosphere was people were quite critical of it. It was quite quiet, but in the ground it wasn't that quiet. But it's the way it kind of it holds the sound and the rest of it. I hope Wrexham keep the race course as is to a certain degree. I suppose you've got to extend it a little bit, but keep the soul of the club in it.
Yeah, 100%. I think, we all want to see the new cop stand built. Again, it's not going to be anything like the old cop stand where, massive 5,500 terrace behind the goal. That was something special. You'll never recreate that. And, we do have to move forward. We have to be realistic. I think we all get misty-eyed. I certainly do. I certainly don't enjoy football like I used to. And that's why in recent years I've become more active. For a number of years now, I've become more active in local football. That's where I get my kicks more than anywhere now, really. But yeah, we all know with Wrexham, we need that cop stand. I think we need to spruce up, the other three stands as well. But I think to me, something like 22,000 seems about right for where we're heading, where we're at. And you've got to give a nod to where we've come from as well. There were times in non-league where, Christ, if I wanted to speak to the person next to me, I'd have to jog 20 yards over. It's like some of the attendances, it dropped below. I mean, our attendances were still good. Don't get me wrong. For non-league, we're still 3,500, 4,000, or 4,500 sometimes. But let's not run before we can walk as well. These new fans that have come over from America and worldwide, fantastic. They're more than welcome. But yeah, one or two sometimes try to dictate where the club's heading with their opinions. And yeah, I think the guys who have been there for a long time like to remind them, just, you've only been there 4 years. Just calm down a little bit.
Slow down.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, it's very quickly, mate, just to finish us off. I wanted to ask you, or Matthew actually asked in the comments, he said, how difficult do you think it will be for Cardiff to get back up from League One? Because it looks like a real difficult league to get up in. And plus, I don't think Cardiff are going to spend like what Birmingham have done, last summer. They spent a fortune.
Well, the thing I would say to that is trajectory is a big thing with football, isn't it? Cardiff, unfortunately, it's quite sad to see. I've always said Cardiff are the biggest club in Wales. I've always said that. And the Swansea, I've got an equal amount of Swansea mates and Cardiff mates, and the Swansea mates will be shouting at the screen, I'm sure. But I've always said Cardiff are the biggest club in Wales. Your support pretty much covers most of South Wales. Swansea's is a bit more limited, isn't it? It's more focused on the Swansea area than Cardiff's.
Yeah.
But that aside, Swansea over the last 20 odd years have been much better run, and they've had more success than Cardiff. But I can't remember where I was even going with this. But the thing was, the problem is, if Cardiff go down, a club on the down, it's hard to reverse that. It's really, really hard. And we were a club going into League One on the up. It's much, much easier to go. And also the fans were sort of accepting, if we finish 15th, that's fine. That wouldn't be a bad season. Cardiff fans will be going down hoping to get straight back up. And you've seen it with Ipswich. You've seen it with Sunderland. You've seen it. I mean, Portsmouth went down another one again, didn't they? Big clubs. And the worry for me for Cardiff would be, the crowds in the CC. You just mentioned there, sometimes the atmosphere. Now, if you've got a night game against someone like Wycombe Wanderers or someone not too attractive, maybe the crowds might drop to 10,000. It's going to be hard to get up for that. So I suppose the short answer would be it's going to be very difficult. I would hope you stay up. It's going to be tricky, of course. But yeah, I'm really hoping that you stay up. It's a bit mixed amongst Wrexham fans. There's the old school who remember Wrexham Cardiff being proper rivals, who were a bit of schadenfreude. Yeah, let him go down, it'd be funny, blah blah blah. But there's also there's a genuine hope amongst Wrexham fans that we can have the Welsh derbies back, because they were great days, and times are different now, but still they would be amazing matches to be involved in.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Missing those derby games will be a bitter pill to swallow as you guys go up. But we got to win 2 games and hope Hull lose to Derby, and then we'll see where we are last day of the season. Could be a stressful day. Tomi, mate, thank you so much for joining me, mate. I really appreciate it. Big thank you to Robert Earnshaw, Jack Sharp, and of course Merthyr Town's assistant manager Andy Smith. And of course, Ace Podcast Nation's commercial manager, Aaron Anderson, for joining me. No bias at all there whatsoever. I really appreciate him joining me. And it's been a fun show full of guests, opinions, and more. We'll be back next Wednesday on Cymru Sport Radio for another episode. And of course, I'll be back in Cardiff City World tomorrow. Appreciate you all. Good night.
Cymru Sport.